Hey guys, here today with a video showing you how to replace the front brake pads and rotors on a 2010 Honda Odyssey. This procedure will be the same for this is the third generation Odyssey, which was made between 2005 and 2010. This is the last year of this body style. Obviously you'll need to jack the car up and get it on jack stands, and you'll need new rotors and pads. If your pads come with new hardware, that's great. You can go on ahead and use the new hardware. Mine, however, do not have new hardware, so I'll just be reusing the old hardware. You won't need anything really particularly special for this job. It's a 14mm wrench or socket, a 12mm wrench or socket for the brake line. You'll need a 19mm socket for the caliper bracket bolts, and then you'll need probably the only thing you probably may not have is an impact driver, which is what you'll use to take the screws that are holding the rotors on. These screws right here that you can see, this one and this one, you use something like this. It's called an impact driver. Pretty much it holds a bit, and you hit the end of it with the hammer, and that brief moment of quick impact breaks those bolts loose. A lot of guys try to just stick a screwdriver in there and unscrew them. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. You just end up stripping them. So alternatively, if you have a little cordless impact with the Phillips bit, that may work as well. But I usually just use this impact driver. You can buy, it comes as a set. Looks something like this. Comes with all the different bits in it. Costs probably around 20 or 30 bucks. No, maybe a little bit more than that. Probably about $30, $35. But yeah, I do rotors a lot and brakes. So the first thing you would need to do with this is to, actually I'm going to go ahead and turn the wheel a little bit to the right, so that way when I do get off this caliper, I can simply just break the caliper bolts loose. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the wheel. Okay, so now you'll be looking at pretty much the caliper, the back of the caliper. What you'll need to do now is to loosen up the 12mm bolt that's right here. That's holding on the brake line. Go ahead and loosen that up completely, and you can wiggle the brake line out of its holder there. And the next thing you want to do is to remove or loosen the two 14mm bolts that are up here on top and right down here on the bottom. That'll loosen up the caliper. These you can just pull off, set to the side. Like so. And what I like to do is to take and stick a screwdriver right in between here and just pry the caliper a little bit. That way it becomes loose, so you can pull it away easily, just like so. You see we have the caliper here now. I usually just hang it up here on the strut, so that way it's not hanging by the brake. That way it's not hanging by the brake hose. Now pretty much you just see it. These pads here are good on this car, but the rotors, the pads were replaced, but the rotors were not replaced. So this car has warped rotors, and the pedal pulsates a lot when you're holding firm pressure on it. So I'm going to replace the pads and the rotors. So you can go ahead and just remove the pads away, like so. Just take them out. Now what I'm going to do is take and compress the pistons back into the caliper, because if you try and put new pads on and put these pistons back on it like this, you probably won't be able to fit them. So I think I've told you guys in many other videos to go get you one of these little hand piston compressors. They work really well. You can use them on any car, doesn't matter year, make, or model, and it's only about 10 bucks. So you'll take the old pad, stick it in here like so, just like this, and you'll take this tool and you'll stick it in. I'll show you how it goes. Take the tool and you stick it like this, so that way when you're turning it, it's squeezing the pistons back into the caliper. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these all the way back in here. Okay, like so. Now what you want to do is remove this brake caliper here. You can do that by removing these two 19mm bolts that are back here in the back. You will probably need a breaker bar or something a little bit longer in order to break these loose, because sometimes they're on pretty tight. What I like to do is use my jack handle as an extension so that I can have more leverage on it. So you go ahead and break these loose, like so. Make sure you hold the caliper bracket, because it will be, it will fall down as soon as you pull the bolts out. So just make sure you do that. Okay, now you got those out. Now I'm gonna go ahead and turn the wheel back straight now. Okay, so now we need to deal with taking these two screws off that hold this here rotor on. You can spray WD-40 around this hub right here, may help. I spray a little bit of brake cleaner on it, just to kind of clean whatever's off there. But you'll want to take the impact driver, or possibly a big Phillips screwdriver if you have it. Like I said, it's probably going to strip it because these are on pretty tight. But pretty much what you want to do is you take and you stick this bit in here, and you'll hit this with the hammer, just a sharp impact. That way it'll break this loose. This is designed to go left or right. You actually use this tool by pushing it down. If you want to go left or right, you probably can't see it in the camera, but I'm going to turn it to the left because I am trying to break it loose. And pretty much I'll stick this right in here like so, like this, and I'm just going to smack it with the hammer just like so, and you'll see, you probably can't see in the camera there, but this takes the screw out just like that. There's no drama, it doesn't strip the screw, and then I can simply reuse these screws again. Sometimes the screws get stuck on there. And I'll go ahead and do the same for this other one here. Stick it in there, make sure it's nice and seated, and a quick impact like that, and now the screw is out. You'll run across these screws on mostly a lot of Hondas. There are other types of retaining screws for rotors. German cars usually use Torx bits, and they're actually not on as hard as these are on. I don't know what's up with the Hondas, but they are always on super tight. But regardless of the fact, that's the best way to get them off. And now here the rotor, as you guys have seen me do in other videos, the best way to get stuck rotors off is to hit them here on the face of the rotor, not the actual rotor down here, but right here in the middle. You can go ahead and put a few lug nuts back on, that way you don't miss and mess up the threads by accident. And you go ahead and give it a few whacks and it will come right off. Actually, see, that one only took one, just like so. And you can go ahead and just take this rotor off. Spray it off with brake cleaner first before installing it. Well, you get all the residue off. go on ahead and install it back on. You want to make sure that the holes, you see there's these two holes here, this one and the other one, you want to make sure that those line up with the retaining screw holes that you just took out. So that way you can reinstall the screws back that hold the rotor on. Now to reinstall these, you can just use a screwdriver and just do it hand tight. I do just tap this gently, that way I know that it's seated. But you can just use a regular screwdriver and screw them back in. That's completely fine. Alright, now you got your new rotor back on. I'm going to go ahead and turn the wheel back on so that we can reinstall the brake caliper bracket. Okay, now we can take and install the caliper bracket back on with the 19mm bolts. Just slide it back into place just like you took it off. Start the threads. Now when you tighten these back on, I'm pretty sure there's a torque you're supposed to follow, but honestly I just take it with the breaker bar, get it as snug as I can get it, and I'm good to go. Just like so. Now since I won't be using new hardware, I'm going to go ahead and spray these old ones off with brake cleaner. That way the pads can go sit into a nice spot. Just like so. Now you want to check these, there's supposed to be pins in here that slide in and out of the caliper. Now normally these things are supposed to slide in and out. These here rubber pins right here, and they're supposed to have grease on them. That's what allows the piston to slide. But as you can tell, these ones right here are really stuck. Like, I'm really supposed to be able to push this here pin in and out. It's supposed to be able to move in and out freely, but there's just simply no grease on this thing anymore. You can see, you can just pull them straight out of their little rubber holders. You need to wipe them down completely, get all the nasty stuff off of it, and that way you can put new grease on it, because they're supposed to be able to slide. As you can tell, that one doesn't slide at all. And what you want to use is multi-purpose grease. It'll usually probably say disc brake, wheel bearing, or universal joints or suspension grease. It's pretty much just red grease. Looks just like this. You want to take it and apply a really good amount to the pin, all over the pin, the whole entire thing. Don't be afraid to use more grease. It's fine, it won't hurt it at all. Yeah, you want to just grease up the entire pin, and then you'll just go ahead and just slide it right back into its spot where it was at, so that way it's able to move. You see now this one moves a lot better now. So you pretty much take those, take this top one out, take the bottom one out. If you've never had grease on them, I promise you there will probably be pretty hard to get out. You can use a pair of pliers to pull them out, or you can just kind of push them out with the wrench here like so, and eventually they'll come out. The little rubber boot around it comes off very easily, and then you can just you see this one isn't really hard, really tough. It shouldn't be like that. There's absolutely zero grease on these, so that's probably why the rotors have warped and failed before, because the caliper is not allowed to move like it should. So like I said, just take them, wipe them off, put new grease on them, and you'll be good to go. Alright, after you got the pins re-greased, you can go ahead and take your new brake pads and stick them into the caliper, just like so. Get them on just like that. Then you can go on ahead and reinstall the caliper back with the 14mm bolts. Just take your caliper, slide it back over. You probably have to push the pins in up top and on the bottom to make sure that you can get the caliper completely on. And you go on ahead and just tighten these ones back up. Also, just as snug as you can get them. They don't have to be very, very tight. And go ahead and reinstall the brake line back right here with the 12mm bolt, just like so. Now you want to make sure you go back in the car, and before you start it, pump the brakes until they get firm. That way these the piston will push itself back out and they'll be ready to go. That's pretty much it, all there is to it. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. If this is your first time to the channel and you enjoyed this video and it was helpful to you, please hit the like button, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out. I appreciate you guys watching my videos. I'll see you guys later.